FBI today is laying out a chilling tale involving a proposed suicide attack that was supposed to happen today, January 17th, here in Washington. Among the targets considered, the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, and a specific synagogue. But the most detailed and focused planning involved a plot to attack the White House with a three-man team using assault rifles, hand grenades, and an anti-tank rocket launcher. The plan was to cause a distraction, breach the White House grounds, blow a hole in the mansion, and then proceed to kill, quote, as many people as possible and do the most damage.
Queen Elizabeth's 97-year-old husband, Prince Philip, is said to be doing fine this morning after a car crash where he was at the wheel. His SUV flipped, but he walked away without serious injuries. It happened yesterday near the Queen's country estate in eastern England. Jonathan Vigliotti is at the scene in Sandringham. Jonathan, good morning.
Good morning. We may be here in the British countryside, but the road Prince Philip was trying to turn onto yesterday is far from some quaint country road. We're talking about 3 lanes of traffic traveling up to 60 miles an hour. Witnesses say the prince is lucky to be alive.
Prince Philip's Land Rover came to a screeching halt on its side. The force of impact shattered the windshield and jolted the 97-year-old prince, who was behind the wheel and strapped into the driver's seat. One witness said Philip was lightly bleeding and appeared very shocked, but was pulled from the wreck with the help of a bystander.
I helped him move his legs, which were a bit trapped. It was all a bit crushed, and then I saw his face and I realised who it was.
2 women in a second vehicle were hospitalized with minor injuries. A 9-month-old baby was found uninjured in the back seat. Many people were surprised to hear Philip was behind the wheel to begin with.
Overseas now to that devastating fire ripping through an apartment building in Paris, killing at least 10 people and injuring dozens more. Residents running up to the roof or climbing out windows to escape. James Longman has the latest. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Robin. This was a catastrophic fire in an upmarket neighborhood of Paris. The true scale of the devastation is only really becoming clear this morning.
Apocalyptic. That's what firefighters called this huge fire in Paris overnight, which has killed 10 people and injured more than 30. Look at the strength of the blaze. Orange and purple flames shooting out of windows, roaring for 6 hours as emergency services battled to get to those trapped. Access nearly impossible. Residents winched to safety, some rescued from the roof. 250 firefighters on the scene, 8 of them among the injured, pushing through the smoke, balanced precariously on balcony edges. This woman says an alarm went off a little after midnight and smoke was already everywhere. Living on the 8th floor, she had to go from balcony to get away, and she says others joined her, huddled up in a corner, waiting to be rescued.
Breaking news from London. The Metropolitan Police Counter-Terrorism Command has launched an investigation after 3 small improvised explosive devices were received in the mail by 3 different transport hubs across the city. Near these main locations, London City Airport, Heathrow Airport, and the Waterloo train station, which is the city's biggest railway station. Scotland Yard says it's treating the incident as a linked series and are keeping an open mind regarding motives. Joining me live from London is Matt Bradley. Matt, what do we know about this?
Well, Ali, as you mentioned, police are already treating these as an attempted terrorism attack. And that's because they've already referred this to the counterterrorism officers. That's a specialized unit within the British police force. And they're calling these bombs IEDs, or improvised explosive devices. Now, that's a term that a lot of people who've been following the Iraq War have been familiar with. It means quite a few different things, but it normally refers to a small bomb that's similar to a landmine. So this all started at around 10 a.m. this morning. The packages arrived first at Heathrow Airport, then at Waterloo Station shortly before noon, and finally, shortly after noon, at London City Airport. Now, that's a major but small airport kind of tucked into the middle of the city. So these are all major transport hubs for Britain's capital. Heathrow is the busiest airport in Europe, but flights and most travel to Waterloo, train travel to Waterloo and flights throughout these airports, they weren't affected. And that's interesting. That's because nobody was killed or injured in these attempted attacks. One of the bombs, the one that was sent to Heathrow Airport, the first one, actually kind of exploded, and it did start a small fire. But it's not clear to Scotland Yard that these bombs were even capable of doing any more damage than just that.
Oh my God, right at the president. Are you kidding me? Did y'all see that? Yeah, I got it. Holy smoke, there with the President of the United States in that car. Oh my God, right at the President.
Developing now, Facebook fiasco. Parts of the internet melting down just 2 days after the World Wide Web's 30th birthday.
Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, all going offline for several hours at least today, causing chaos and a huge uproar.
Team 12's Ryan Cody joins us live with how people are coping with this outage. And Ryan, is everything okay?
No, it's not. What are we supposed to do without the ability to scroll aimlessly through feeds or comment on meaningless stories or pictures? We're talking about a several-hour social media meltdown while apparently the next generation was watching, laughing at our misfortune.
Doesn't make sense.
A technological crisis.
I'm going to try this again.
Preventing Diana from connecting with her friends.
It's frustrating today when I couldn't reply.
She's one of the millions struggling with an hours-long Facebook outage.
You like to reach out to people, you like to let them know what's going on, or you like to find out what someone else is doing.
Have you considered calling them?
I could call them, true. But sometimes on Facebook, it's easier.
Clicking, refreshing, praying to a blank screen for hours.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Glor, and we're going to begin tonight with a huge chemical fire in the nation's fourth largest city. The chemical plant in the Houston area has been burning since Sunday morning. Firefighters are trying to keep it from spreading as thick black smoke billows into the air hour after hour. They have no idea when it will end. The head of the EPA tells CBS News tonight the agency is closely watching the air quality in the area. The chemical plant is closed and evacuated.
Tonight, this massive fire burning out of control, sending plumes of toxic chemicals into the air near Houston. The flames erupting at the Deer Park chemical plant now for more than 24 hours. That black smoke visible for miles.
It is a very dangerous and active event that's occurring and is still going on.
6 large tanks filled with components used to make gasoline, nail polish remover, and glue now burning, prompting nearby schools to close. Residents for a time told to shelter in place to keep their windows closed and air conditioning off. Officials monitoring the air quality, finding low levels of particulate matter and a volatile organic compound as far as 6 miles from the facility.
把我们整个人全部掀翻掉了，趴地上，门全部砸了，门全部吊顶全部下来，不知道懵掉了呀，直接懵掉了。
An explosion and fire at a chemical plant outside Houston today sent thick smoke into the sky and forced people within a 1-mile radius indoors. At least 1 worker was killed. Adam Bennett of our Houston affiliate KHOU is there.
The blast happened at the Chemco chemical plant just before lunch, sending workers scrambling to safety under fences. Plant workers were initially told by a supervisor to evacuate. Moments later, panic set in.
I could see all the water kick on from like the control units, and it just ignited. The tank blew.
The explosion prompted the lockdown of 4 nearby school districts, serving some 30,000 students. Residents within a 1-mile radius were ordered to shelter in place. Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez.
That a transfer line is what initially ignited, and then an adjacent tank is what caught fire with isobutylene, and then an adjacent storage container next to that as well.
When this worker heard the explosion, his crew took off across a parking lot.
It was scary, yeah, very scary. Everybody that was around me was running.
A 44-gallon drum shoots into the sky like a bullet from a ball of flame, falling between a line of firefighters pumping water into an inferno from above. Flames erupted from the Bradbury Industrial Services factory before 7 o'clock this morning. Its column of thick black smoke stretching from Campbellfield to the CBD could be seen for kilometres and shut down 6 nearby state schools as 175 firefighters battled to establish containment lines. Alex Powell and his fellow welders ran for their lives as the fire spread toward their business.
Right, a powerful explosion has hit an apartment block in central Paris, causing a large fire. Authorities say there are no serious injuries, but at least 27 apartments have been destroyed. The blaze has been put out at this point. A spokesman for the fire brigade says the blast may have been caused by gas containers stored on a balcony. After the fire started, a follow-up explosion was caught on camera. Take a look.
Secret Service officers rushed to secure the White House this afternoon when a man set his clothes on fire just outside the gate. Jeff Piguet says more on what happened here.
Shortly after 3 this afternoon, cameras caught Secret Service officers rushing a man away from the White House. Witnesses reported smoke from the scene, and medics treated the man who looked conscious at the time. The Secret Service says he had been in what they described as a wheelchair-type scooter before lighting his jacket on fire.
The fire was extinguished. They have a small burn, but they are considering his wheelchair and belongings as suspicious at this time.
British police opened fire on a vehicle that repeatedly rammed the Ukrainian ambassador's parked car in London on Saturday. No one was hurt in the attack, which took place in the expensive Holland Park district in the west of the city. The embassy released a statement giving details of the attack. It said the ambassador's car was deliberately rammed. It added that the police had boxed the vehicle in, but it had continued to ram the ambassador's car. The police said the man had then tried to drive at them, which prompted them to open fire. The driver, who was in his 40s, was then tasered by officers and arrested.
Tonight in Paris, heavy hearts. The city, the whole nation really, in mourning.
This was one of the biggest symbols of Paris.
It's quite striking here to see all the Parisians that come here to gather to mourn.
I don't know what to say. For me, it's the most beautiful monument for Paris, better than Eiffel Tower.
Notre Dame, Our Lady of Paris to those who live here, a landmark ravaged by flames. Today, the spire of this 850-year-old landmark burnt like a torch and finally collapsed.
They were in church on Easter Sunday when the bombs went off in Sri Lanka. There were 8 explosions. It was a coordinated attack, according to authorities. 3 churches and 3 luxury hotels were targeted. Most of the attacks were in the capital of Colombo. According to officials, more than 207 people have been killed, including several Americans. More than 450 more have been wounded. 13 suspects have been arrested as of tonight. Elizabeth Palmer has more.
Sri Lankan police arrested 7 suspects just hours after the Easter Day bombings, following a raid that left 3 officers dead. One of the blasts at about 8:30 this morning was caught on cell phone. Up close, the carnage was shocking. Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe appealed for calm. I strongly condemn these attacks on religious sites and hotels, he said. Now, everyone must respect the law. At St. Anthony's Shrine in the capital, Colombo, volunteers carried away the wounded and the dead, who'd come to church this morning to celebrate the most joyful day in the Christian calendar.
At the United Nations today, angry political leaders of the G7 nations issued a formal statement denying complicity in last Tuesday's tragedy involving the British Houses of Parliament and Big Ben, the world's most famous clock. The death toll in what some are calling an unwarranted attack passed 1,100 today as rescue workers and United Nations teams continued to sift through the rubble.
Michael and Lucifer, when they started their war, first thing a giant EMP or something like it went off over North America. Fried every bit of technology. Cell phones, power plants. For the first few days, we'd been together. Thought, hey, someone will save us. No one ever did. When the food ran out, people got mean. Mobs started forming, stealing whatever they could get their hands on. A lot of people died.